Coming up on Bridge City News, the throne speech took place and the Liberal government is promising 1 million new jobs. The Alberta government is looking at economic diversification, which includes tapping into more mineral resource production. And we hear about a Pakistani Christian who's been sentenced to death for blasphemy. Greg Musselman from the Voice of the Martyrs has the details.
Your nation, your province, your southern Alberta. From the heart of Lethbridge, it's Bridge City News with Hal Roberts.
Thanks so much for joining us. Parliamentarians return to the House of Commons for the throne speech. It's a time when a prepared speech is given by the Governor-General to parliamentary members, outlining the government's agenda and focus for the forthcoming session.
The government's approach will have 4 foundations. The first foundation of this plan is to fight the pandemic and save lives. The second foundation of the government's plan is supporting people and businesses through this crisis as long as it lasts, whatever it takes. Effectively dealing with the health crisis is the best thing we can do for the economy. Government action has already helped Canadians stay safe and buffered the worst economic impacts. The third foundation is to build back better to create a stronger, more resilient Canada. To do this, we must keep strengthening the middle class and helping people working hard to join in and continue creating jobs and building long-term competitiveness with clean growth. We must also keep building safer communities for everyone. The fourth and final foundation of this plan is to stand up for who we are as Canadians.
The Liberals are pledging to create 1 million jobs and to expand or introduce benefit programs for nearly every sector of society. They plan to keep the federal wage subsidy and to build a national childcare plan. Today's speech highlighted that nothing can be done to combat climate change, economic inequality, and systemic racism unless the COVID-19 pandemic is under control. The federal Conservatives say they will not support the throne speech. With Tory leader Erin O'Toole self-isolating after being diagnosed with COVID-19, Deputy Party Leader Candice Bergen says her party wanted to see more help for Canadians who've been left behind by pandemic aid programs. The party says that includes single moms, fishermen, and oil workers. Post-tropical storm Teddy has knocked out power to more than 19,000 homes and businesses across Nova Scotia. Fortunately, it has not caused major damage on a scale of post-tropical storm Dorian, which knocked out power for 500,000 people across the Maritimes last September. Earlier today, the storm center was located on Cape Breton's southwest coast, packing winds of 100 kilometers an hour. The Alberta government has struck an expert panel to help the province diversify the economy and to increase mineral resource production. Energy Minister Sonia Savage says doing so will encourage investment in our province and to help create new jobs. Savage says many of our minerals are in global demand.
These minerals include lithium, vanadium, uranium, rare earth elements, diamonds, and potash, many of which are important in the manufacturing of modern products that we use every single day. This includes batteries, metal alloys, cell phones, computers, energy storage cells, and fertilizers. This geological potential, along with the province's experience in responsible resource development, puts Alberta in a great position to become a preferred international producer and suppliers of minerals.
A forensic psychiatry center in Calgary has determined that a Lethbridge woman who set a fire near a downtown business is fit to stand trial. The assessment determined that Mary Lee Parks can be held criminally responsible and is able to provide instructions to her lawyer. The matter has been adjourned to next Monday to allow the defense time to receive and review the assessment. Parks is accused of starting a fire May 13th near the Umami shop on 4th Avenue South. When first responders arrived, they found wood pallets and cardboard piled up against the building in flames. Firefighters put out the fire, but not before the building and store received more than $6,000 in damage. 2 RCMP officers charged in the shooting death of a 31-year-old man in northern Alberta will receive a jury trial. Corporal Randy Stenger and Constable Jessica Brown of the Whitecourt Detachment were arrested in June and charged with criminal negligence causing death. Earlier this month, those charges were upgraded to manslaughter. The pair appeared in Whitecourt Provincial Court yesterday and will be back in court in October. Police in Pincher Creek are requesting help in relation to a bear spray incident. RCMP say last Sunday a male was sprayed by another male on the Bertha Lake Trail in Waterton Lakes National Park. Police say they're looking for the man who used the spray. He's being described as between 40 and 50 years of age, around 5'8" with a stocky build. He was wearing a blue shirt and may have had a European accent. The male exposed to the bear spray was later examined and cleared by EMS. If you can help police with their investigation, call the Pincher Creek RCMP right away at 403-627-6010. As you've heard on Bridge City News, the City of Lethbridge will be receiving a drug treatment court along with 4 additional officers to join the alert unit to fight organized drug crime in our city. The province made the announcement last spring. Lethbridge Mayor Chris Spearman says a drug court is desperately needed in our city as Lethbridge continues to battle a drug crisis. Spearman explains how they work.
So they're given a choice of either going to jail or going into recovery, and it's a very rigorous process. If an individual chooses to go into recovery, they're monitored all the time. They can't use that as an excuse to avoid jail. They have to be genuine about drying out, about going into treatment, going into recovery, and through that whole period, they are monitored.
Catch the full interview with Lethbridge Mayor Chris Spearman and BCN's Jeanette Rocher discussing some hot-button topics in our city. That's coming up after Business News. Art is one of those things that's easy to enjoy while you physically distance during the pandemic. Art Days in Lethbridge will feature 2 new exhibits. On Saturday, you can check out new work at the Southern Alberta Art Gallery. There will even be virtual activities to enjoy. Artists and organizers spoke to BCN about what you may find while you're enjoying the art walk.
We're excited that we're opening 2 new exhibitions. One is called Xenogenesis by the Autolith Group, and it includes sound art and video art about people who feel geological movements in their body. And it's also about issues of race and what it's like to live as a Black person in contemporary culture. The second exhibition is by Lauren Crazybull, and she was the Alberta artist selected for a residency program across the province last year. And as a part of her research, she came to the Lethbridge area to meet some of her family members, and she created a whole exhibition about that experience. Her background as a Blackfoot and Dene artist has really contributed to her understanding of family and what that culture means to her. So she made a brand new photo mural on the east side of the gallery, which is a painted portrait of her grandmother, and it's called Granny Dora.
You can book a personal tour with the Southern Alberta Art Gallery, where a guide will share more information on the exhibits. You can sign up by visiting their website. Local theatre with a COVID-19 twist. That's what Theatre Outre is doing for their play entitled Confessional. Due to the pandemic and an artistic choice, the production is designed for 1 or 2 audience members only. They're taken through a world of the 7 deadly sins that are touched upon. Organizers say they aren't sure what the reaction will be like, but they're excited to bring a new piece of theatre to Lethbridge.
Yeah, so this is new territory for us, and we're expecting people to be a little bit trepidatious about going through it alone, which is why we're offering the option to come with someone else. But it is intended to be experienced by oneself. We think that people will be, we don't even know what to expect from our audience. We hope that they'll be entertained. We hope that the content is thought-provoking. We hope that they leave here with a lot of ideas and thoughts to go away and consider.
Well, these are crazy times, but we still wanted to do a play. So we've created a theatrical experience that's like a fun house of the subconscious. So it's part art installation and part play. And the audience members will come through the space at Dee Dee's Playhouse and see it in a way they've never seen it before and get to visit the 7 deadly sins.
Confessional runs October 2nd through the 11th, and tickets are still on sale. Now, it's no secret that businesses across Alberta have been struggling due to the COVID-19 pandemic. That also rings true for those who've been trying to access the federal government's Canada Emergency Business Account. Now, this loan provides $40,000 to businesses that have been hurt due to COVID-19. Business owners say they've been applying, but sometimes they don't hear back and are getting declined for those loans. Some have taken to Twitter to voice their frustrations. The business owners are hoping for action from the federal government to change the way the businesses are able to apply and seek help through the process with the CEBA helpline.
If we're introducing something that is to help all these Canadian small businesses, to help them out of this really difficult time, let's face it, many of us, if not all of us, have never seen anything like that before in our history of time. We're not experienced with this. And when we're told that something's going to be there to help us, we look forward to that. Perhaps if, Justin Trudeau came through and held good on some of those promises that he made to make it accessible to so many people that need it.
I personally have not had the opportunity to use the helpline. However, following our massive group on Twitter and getting the feedback that we're seeing, first of all, it took an incredible amount of time for them to even put out a helpline. Once the helpline was there, the hold times were upwards of 6 or 8 hours.
Yes, the problem we have as a sole proprietor with a personal bank account is that the whole scheme has been open to sole proprietors, but only if they have existing business accounts. So those of us, and there are many sole proprietors who only bank with personal accounts, just simply cannot access the CEBA account.
A recent report done by the Canadian Federation of Independent Business says that over 70% of Canadian businesses are still open, with 42% fully staffed, and sales are down around 30%. The province announced that there have been 150 new COVID-19 cases over the past 24 hours. There are currently 1,565 active cases across Alberta, including 41 here in the South Zone. There are also 2 in hospital and intensive care in southern Alberta. The Edmonton zone still leads the way with 820 active coronavirus cases. Calgary's next with 485. Just over 15,000 people have now recovered from the novel coronavirus in Alberta, and there have been 258 deaths. Saskatchewan is reporting 10 new cases of COVID-19, with 6 of them being in Saskatoon. Public health officials say another 2 cases have been linked to the outbreak at Brant Industries in Saskatoon. That means there are now 19 cases associated with the cluster. The province has 146 active cases, including 8 people who are in hospital. A resident has died following the outbreak of the coronavirus at a long-term care home in Winnipeg. Parkview Place says the person was among 7 residents and 1 staff member who tested positive for the virus. The fatality has not yet been included in the Manitoba government list of deaths, which currently stands at 18. The province reported 24 new cases of COVID-19, with 20 of them being in Winnipeg. Chief Public Health Officer Dr. Theresa Tam says an increase in COVID-19 cases in the past week is a cause for concern. Tam says there were an average of 1,123 new cases per day over the last week. That is up from 380 cases in mid-August. She says the country is on track for what she calls a big resurgence in several provinces. While most of the new cases are in young adults, Tam points out that the virus is impacting everyone. Raising a child with a disability can be a challenge at the best of times. Ask any parent who's going through it. Dr. Edna Jakota Assam is the chair of the Family Support for Children with Disabilities. She also has a daughter who has Down syndrome. Dr. Edna says what has really helped her through her journey is relying on God's Word.
Having a child with challenges drives you to ask questions. And if you don't look at the right place for the answers to those questions, your faith can be shaken. And that was what happened to me, because initially I was looking for answers. And then I realized that it's not a bad thing. I mean, having a child with needs is not a curse. You didn't do anything wrong. That is just who they are. And so when you have that understanding, by getting into the Word and knowing the Word, it really, really helps.
Dr. Edna will also discuss what support programs have been readily available through the pandemic. That's coming up later in our program. The U.S. federal election is coming up Tuesday, November the 3rd. Will Donald Trump and the Republicans get back in, or will it be Joe Biden and the Democrats? Most Americans view their country's economic situation as bleak during the pandemic. But as we find out in this next story, a new poll finds a rising percentage who also see signs of stability, giving reason for optimism.
Most Americans still think the coronavirus pandemic is crippling the U.S. economy, but a rising percentage also sees signs of stability. A recent survey by the Associated Press NORC Center finds fewer Americans expect the economy to get worse in the next year.
And so I see gradually we're getting better. Not as fast as I would like. It's not the way it was before, but it is getting better. It's getting better than it was in March and April.
As Election Day fastly approaches, partisan politics is driving different views of the economy. The new poll found about 2/3 of Republicans call the economy good, compared with just 16% of Democrats.
Of course, with the coronavirus, I think we went in the wrong direction. I don't think we should have shut the economy down. We should have fixed the problem. And I think that Donald Trump at the helm is the best possible person for the choice because he's proven it. I think Joe Biden just wants to go along with his party and to make the other party look as bad as possible. I don't see that as a solution to our problems.
But you can't live in fairyland and say that we want to open the entire country and that'll be fine. So I'm falling on the side of the Democrats to say we've got to solve this problem first and then open the country and then allow those owners of businesses to open because they know that they keep their employees safe and their patrons and customers safe. If Trump were to win, I don't have any confidence at all that anything will happen for years. If Biden wins, I have more confidence because I think he'll step up. He'll certainly trust Fauci, Redfield Burks, and others that are in the know and follow their recommendations.
Nathan Algren, Associated Press.
A Pakistani Christian who's the father of 4 has been sentenced to death for blasphemy. According to Greg Musselman from Voice of the Martyrs, the 37-year-old man, Asif Pervaz, did not commit blasphemy, but instead refused to convert to Islam. Musselman says Pervaz was working in a garment factory and his supervisor was pressuring him to convert to Islam.
The supervisor was actually sending him text messages, trying to convince him to become a Muslim and join Islam. And Asif said, no, I don't want to do that. I'm a Christian follower of Jesus. And so text messages went back and forth. And when the supervisor realized that he was not going to convert, he then went to the authorities, to police, and had Asif charged with blasphemy. And in Pakistan, that is the death penalty. Now, this happened in 2013, so we're talking 7 years ago. And as it usually is with a lot of the Christians, they just sit. I know they don't get to go to trial. And if they do, it's not usually a good situation. So he has waited for a number of years. And then finally, the courts have ruled and have found him guilty of blasphemy, something that Asif vehemently denies. And he was also given a 3-year sentence for illegal use of text messages. And once that 3-year sentence is up, he's also fined 400 Canadian dollars. But once that first 3-year sentence is up, he will then be executed unless there is something that changes. He is appealing the situation.
Musselman says as far as he knows, the Canadian government has not been involved in Pervaz's case. North Korea is on the verge of a catastrophic meltdown, according to reports reaching open doors from North Korean Christians. Timothy Cho says the crisis is being caused by a number of things, including the COVID-19 lockdown, catastrophic flooding, and international sanctions against that country.
North Korea currently has over around 30 labor and concentration camps, and they currently have over 250,000 political and labor Christian prisoners getting punished severely, which they cannot even get out from the prison once they are locked in there. And when you just go even outside of Pyongyang, you can easily see the hunger and malnutrition situation in this country. Because of the human rights issues existing account, and also all the oppressive freedom of religion, and North Korea understand what consequences would going to happen to them. North Korea is still quite afraid to accept international aid because they have so many hidden secret things inside the country which they don't want to reveal to show it to the international community.
It was another beautiful day in southwestern Alberta. Seasonal temperatures will remain for the rest of the week. A full look at the weather picture is coming up. We saw sun mixed with some clouds today, but nice and warm. Tonight, it'll be partly cloudy with a low near 11. Jeanette Rocher has more now on how the rest of the week is shaping up.
Tomorrow, just a few clouds again with a high expected near 20 degrees. Friday, more clouds roll in with a high of 18. Cooling off slightly on Saturday under a mainly cloudy sky to 16 degrees. Overcast and 21 on Sunday. Monday and Tuesday, the mercury will increase a couple of degrees under a partly cloudy sky with a high of 23 on both days. Looking at the almanac, the average high for this time of year is 19 degrees with an average low of 4. Highest temperature on this date was recorded in 1994 at 32 degrees. Our record low was -5 in 1946. Sunrise today was at 7:20 a.m. and sunset 7:27 p.m. Let's see how tomorrow is shaping up across the country now as special weather statement continues for much of the west coast. They'll bring periods of heavy rains and strong winds. Victoria will see showers and temperatures steady near 14 degrees. Vancouver could see 10 to 15 millimeters of rain tomorrow and a risk of a thunderstorm. Calgary will see clearing skies in the morning with a west wind gusting up to 50 km per hour at times and a high of 19 degrees. Edmonton could see some clouds with 30% chance of showers early in the morning and a high of 20. As we look to the rest of the prairies, Saskatoon will see a high of 23 with mainly cloudy skies. Regina will see a mix of sun and cloud with a high of 24. Mainly sunny skies over Winnipeg with a high of 23. A 30% chance of showers is expected in Toronto and a high of 26. Same amount of rain expected in Ottawa, but a high of only 21. 22 degrees will be the expected high, and a mix of sun and cloud is in store for both Montreal and Fredericton tomorrow. Halifax will see mainly cloudy skies tomorrow with a high of 21. 18 degrees with a mix of sun and cloud is expected for Charlottetown. And finally, St. John's, Newfoundland will see 60% chance of drizzle with fog patches and a high of 17 degrees with a wind gust up to 80 kilometers per hour along parts of the coast.
Johnson & Johnson is beginning a huge final study to try and prove if a single-dose COVID-19 vaccine can protect against the virus. The study, involving 60,000 volunteers in the U.S., Mexico, South America, and South Africa, will be one of the world's largest coronavirus vaccine trials so far. A handful of other vaccines in the United States and other countries are already in final stage testing. Hopes are high that answers about at least one candidate could come by the year's end, or perhaps even sooner. Analysts say retailers are facing scary sales prospects for Halloween due to COVID-19 cases rising across the country. Experts say there will be soft demand for candy and costumes this year as parties are scaled back and trick-or-treating is in question. Analysts say families and friends may plan their own bubble Halloween or harvest parties. Experts warn Halloween sales will also serve as an indicator for what retailers can expect this Christmas, which is the largest shopping season of the year. Canadian exports of crude oil by rail fell to another 8-year low in July. That is despite a gradual recovery of North American fuel demand from low levels due to measures taken to control the COVID-19 pandemic. The Canada Energy Regulator says rail shipments of oil in July fell to around 39,000 barrels per day. That is down from close to 43,000 in June. 2 oil-rich Arab Gulf states have suffered economic blows today. Moody's Investors Service downgraded Kuwait for the first time, sounding the alarm over its liquidity risks. Meanwhile, the United Arab Emirates said its economy would slow down to a level last seen in 2009 during the global financial crisis. Its central bank reports the country's economy is expected to shrink by 5.2% for the year. That is worse than the 3.5% the International Monetary Fund predicted. Now, here's a look at today's markets. The markets took a beating today as the Fed was asking for more stimulus. The TSX was down 325 points on the day to finish at 15,817. The Dow was down 525 points to 26,763. The S&P 500 was down 79 points to 3236, and the Nasdaq was down 330 on the day to 10,632. Oil was up 13 cents to $39.93 per barrel. Natural gas was up 29 cents to $2.13. Gold was up 11 cents to $18.63.45 an ounce, and silver was unchanged on the day at $22.78 an ounce. Wheat is at $240 per metric ton, barley's at $237, canola's at $5.18, and corn is at $257 per metric ton. Live cattle were up 68 cents on the day to $107.15. Feeder cattle were up 90 cents to $141.53, and lean hogs were up $1.18 to $69.50. The Canadian dollar was up slightly on the day to 74.72 US. Recapping one of our top stories this hour, the federal throne speech took place today. The Liberals are pledging to create 1 million new jobs and to expand or introduce benefit programs for nearly every sector of society. The Conservatives do not support today's throne speech. Deputy Party Leader Candice Bergen says her party wanted to see more help for Canadians who've been left behind by pandemic aid programs. The party says that includes single moms, fishermen, and oil workers. PCN's Jeanette Roche had a chance to chat with Lethbridge Mayor Chris Spearman about if our city's face covering bylaw may be extended beyond December 31st. That interview is coming up. But first, here's a look what's happening in and around your community.
Here's your Bridge City News community calendar. Begin this fall season with the Canadian Fall Festival hosted by the Evangelical Free Church in Lethbridge on Friday, September 25th from 5 to 7 p.m. in the church parking lot. Enjoy a free live concert, games, pumpkin decorating, and poutine. Bring your family, lawn chairs, picnic blanket, and have a blast at this COVID-safe event. For details, call the church office at 403-329-3125. Get out and explore nature. The Helen Schuler Nature Center is offering guided 1-hour field trips for all ages. Visit lethbridge.ca/things to do. Click on Nature Center and follow the events page where you'll find a list of featured tours that will introduce you to amazing plants and animals found right here in Lethbridge. Cost is $25. Book online for your tour today. Do you or someone you love have a gambling problem? Is it causing chaos to your life and relationships? Gamblers Anonymous holds weekly meetings on Tuesdays at 7 p.m. and Thursdays at 6 p.m. at 408 13th Street North. For more information, call 403-331-0822 or visit albertaga.net. And that's your Bridge City News community calendar.
There's been a lot of contention surrounding the mask bylaw that came into effect several weeks ago, and we've been seeing some anti-mask rallies around town, including one that filed into City Hall during the council meeting a couple of weeks ago, and another one on Mayor McGrath Boulevard. Joining us by Skype to speak more on the subject is Lethbridge Mayor Chris Spearman. Mayor Spearman, welcome, and thank you so much for joining us today.
I'm happy to be here, Jeanette.
Awesome. So with all the mask contention, I think part of the problem is perhaps some people felt that it was done so late in the game, and now that there isn't as many COVID cases in town, they're probably asking why a bylaw now. So what do you tell these people that are so upset?
Well, the numbers are up and down every week. We were anticipating and preparing for a second wave. The last thing we want is to have businesses and our community locked down again. So the idea of the mask bylaw is one of a suite of things we should be doing, like physical distancing, washing our hands on a regular basis, using hand sanitizer, making sure that we're taking all the precautions. And we thought a mask bylaw would be helpful in the city. What we want to do is protect the people who have immune deficiencies and seniors, of course. And we also want to make sure that people can go into our businesses safely and not risk spreading COVID amongst the population. So the purpose is to protect people from the spread of COVID and to keep our businesses open and our economy running.
Yeah, 100%. Have there been any fines that have been given out so far that have been dished out?
No, there haven't.
There have not?
Nope. The purpose is education,
Okay.
And we want to make sure we want the community to work together. You know, there'll never be a bylaw passed that has 100% support. People say that it's against their democratic rights, but your democratic rights really extend to the next person. So you can't be jeopardizing the physical health of somebody else. So that's the limit to your democratic rights. And so we're simply asking people to cooperate. And we believe that our community will be better off for it if we can get through when other provinces, other communities are experiencing a second wave. If we can keep our economy open, that'll be tremendous.
Yeah, 100%. So speaking to that, if things get worse and more people are contentious about it, would the city start looking to begin handing out those $100 fines?
We're really going to not emphasize the fine side. I think people want us to go out and start imposing fines because some people aren't wearing masks. That's the last thing we're going to do. Is create reactions. We want people to cooperate and think about their neighbors, and let's have a city that looks after each other.
So will the city be looking at extending the face covering bylaw beyond December?
Definitely. What we will be doing is re-examining the bylaw after December 31st. So it's a temporary bylaw. It expires on December 31st, and the bylaw will be reviewed at the first City Council meeting following December 31st.
Okay, then, something to look forward to for the new year then, I guess. Okay, so we were talking about a second wave, preparing for that. With school starting up again, the possibility that could be a trigger for it as well. So there were teachers and parents that had concerns. So Mayor Spearman, do you agree with the decision to reopen schools in September? Do you think that it was too soon, in your personal opinion?
Well, it's not really my responsibility. The decision to open schools was between the school divisions and the Minister of Education. The province decided to open schools, and of course, they provided all the circumstances under which schools can operate. And I know our school boards and school divisions have really been working hard to make sure that our schools were ready for kids to return to. And they've created various protocols that are really building specific and school specific to make sure kids are safe. So if kids can be returned to school safely, learning in person is the best form of learning. I think there's a lot of parents who are very concerned about kids having to learn at home on video systems and questioning the quality of that learning. So how long can we do that? It's better if kids are in school, in a classroom with a teacher, and if we can do that safely, I'm all for it.
Now, at Chinook High School, they are considering an outbreak right now where there's 2 or more cases. It's considered an outbreak. Do you agree with how the school has handled this situation?
I would. I'm not going to second guess decisions that are made at the school. I believe that they are the experts in providing education and looking after their students.
So, Mayor Spearman, you sit on the Police Commission, which was recently criticized by the Police Association for upholding a decision to suspend an officer without pay. I think the argument here was that people should be considered innocent until proven guilty, and that in the case with LPS, no cop has ever been suspended without pay until they've been proven guilty. So why did the commission decide to go ahead with suspending an officer without pay?
Many people don't understand the role of the police commission, and specifically even of city council as it relates to policing. So we cannot direct the police. All we can do in the case is take a look at whether it's reasonable that the police chief recommended a certain course of action, and if it's reasonable, we're not there to adjudicate the case. That case will be adjudicated later by another body. So we're simply saying, was this handled appropriately? And in this case, I hesitate to discuss this much because it is an HR matter and a matter that could ultimately go before the courts. But the police commission is not the adjudicator. We just simply say, were all the right processes followed under Section 45 of the Police Act by the police chief? That's all that's required.
Keeping on the topic of law enforcement, we recently had another drug house shut down by a scan unit. So are we getting ahead of the drug crisis in our city, or do we still have a long way to go?
A difficult question for me to answer. I'm not sure. At any one time, we do rely on the police, the data, but my gut feeling is that the drug problem really hasn't gone away. The reports from the police to City Council indicate that there are at least 200 hardcore users that have mental health issues, a huge challenge for them to deal with, and additional people. So the closing of the supervised consumption site didn't mean that people left the city. It just meant that they're spreading out. So we're getting reports of issues in other areas like golf gardens and in community parks elsewhere. That's where people have gravitated to in order to use their drugs. So people are still addicted. People haven't gone into recovery and detox or intox. So that's a huge challenge for us, and we're still trying to deal with that problem.
Yes. Now, the province says that it's going to set up a drug treatment court in Lethbridge soon, and I know that council had the opportunity to hear a woman come down and talk about it. Can you explain why a drug treatment court would be a good idea?
The idea is to give people who are convicted of crimes, either drug use or drug-related crimes, an opportunity to go into recovery. So they're given a choice of either going to jail or going into recovery, and it's a very rigorous process. If an individual chooses to go into recovery, they're monitored all the time. They can't use that as an excuse to avoid jail. They have to be genuine about drying out, about going into treatment, going into recovery, and through that whole period, they are monitored. So it's an alternative. If it works, it means that fewer people will be using drugs and fewer people will be depending on crime to pay for their drugs.
Yeah. Now, Chris, can you give us an update on the detox beds in Lethbridge, what the situation there is?
The number of detox beds has not changed, so we still have 8 beds at the regional hospital. And we've recently created 30 intox beds at the homeless shelter. So that means that the police or any of the services can take people to the intox, and if they're under the influence, they can be cared for, and hopefully people can talk to them, they can access services, and ultimately we want to move those people into treatment and recovery when those services are available.
Wonderful. Let's switch gears again and talk about business and investment. What is the city doing right now to lure more business and investment our way?
Well, we have economic development Lethbridge. City funds that with $800,000 a year to attract businesses to the community, to encourage businesses in the community to grow and expand. And we also have Tech Connect, which is operated by EDL, which helps foster startup businesses. So those are the 3 components that we've funded for some time. City Council will be bringing forward a suite of 6 incentive programs to our next City Council meeting, and that City Council meeting in 2 weeks will look at these different incentive programs, and hopefully we'll approve some that will encourage additional investment in the city of Lethbridge and help us cope with post-COVID-19 recovery.
Are there new initiatives from the city as we work towards reconciliation?
Well, we are making sure that we try to engage with our Indigenous people. We want to begin a relationship with our Indigenous neighbors, the Blood Tribe Council and other groups. We want to see how we can work together on many of these problems. They have the same problems that we have here in the city of Lethbridge when it comes to housing, when it comes to drug addiction, when it comes to crime. And if we can work together, maybe we can have greater success.
Now, we all know that 2020 has been a crazy and unprecedented year. What do you foresee being the biggest challenges for the city moving forward into 2021?
Well, I do think we need to make sure our economy is strong. We need to talk positively about our city. We have a beautiful city. We have many positive things happening in our city. And all too often, the negativism is dominant. We need to say Lethbridge is a great city in which to live and work, and there's great opportunities here. And we all need to be talking positively about how our various organizations and employers and everything we do is great for people that live here. We want to talk about our quality of life. So those are things, hopefully we can turn the corner on some of our social issues, some of the crime issues, and begin speaking more positively about the city of Lethbridge and how great it is to live here.
And with that, it looks like we are out of time. Mayor Chris Spearman, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Jeanette. It's been a pleasure. Look forward to talking to you again next month.
Raising a child with disabilities comes with challenges and victories. Throw in a global pandemic, and those challenges increase exponentially. Joining me now today is Dr. Edna Jacoto SM. She's the Chair of Family Support for Children with Disabilities and a proud mom of 4 daughters, one of whom has Down syndrome and just turned 17. Dr. Edna Jakota Sem, welcome back to BCN.
Thank you, Hal. I'm happy to be here.
Now, Edna, one of your daughters is actually home from high school because of a recent outbreak here in Lethbridge.
Yes, she is. We got the text and the email last night, and so we had to scramble to get in touch with 811 to try to book a test for her. And the school has been amazing. They phoned right away to find out if everything was okay, and they just gave us the details. And then they phoned again today just to make sure that everything was fine and how schooling is going to roll out. But we are not quite sure yet because they are ready to teach and everything is online for her, but we have to be with her when she's studying. But since she's supposed to be in isolation, we are not quite sure how that's going to look like right now. So we still have to work on the details about how to be able to support her. She has her EA ready to go, but it's our end that we are trying to work out the details.
Now let's discuss parenting a child who has a disability or is differently abled. Tell me about this journey, what it's been like for you and your family.
I think initially was a bit of a surprise because we didn't know that we're going to have her with the disability. But I think that, with time, you get to understand more about the condition. And then you learn to appreciate just the strengths that she has. But I'm not going to say that it's been an easy journey. It's a challenging journey. It stretches you as an adult. It stretches you as a human being. But I wouldn't trade it for anything.
Now, when you were told that your daughter had Down syndrome, what were your thoughts and feelings about it initially?
I think it was shock because we didn't know, and fears about how life was going to be like because I didn't know much about Down syndrome at the time. But then as time went on, we sort of knew that it was going to be okay. We knew it was going to be a lot of work, but we knew that it was going to be okay. Now, let me backtrack a bit. One of the reasons that we found out was that she had a heart condition when she was born because her physical features were not very consistent since she's dark skinned, because most whites who get it here, it's more visible. But because she's dark skinned, you needed to have experience to be able to identify. So they weren't quite sure, but they suspected because of the heart condition. So once they did the genetic testing and we were clear, that we knew that, okay, we know what we are dealing with now. So it's been lots of up and downs, but I think that we are okay with it, and she's doing amazing well. So.
Now, Edna, you have 4 daughters. What is the family dynamic like? And more importantly, do you see any time in the bathroom?
I like that question. Well, family dynamics. Okay, so our oldest is 21, soon to be 22. And so she has been a really great big sister, and the 2 younger ones will tend to play together, and our daughter, she's the second one. So she's very independent. Let me just put it that way. She's super independent in the sense that she likes to do things by herself, but when she needs help, sometimes she doesn't want to ask, except when she sees a bug, like she sees an ant crawling, then she screams, "Help!" But other than that, yeah.
Now, the COVID-19 measures and restrictions have probably been a challenge for you on many different levels. Now, what have you done to ensure your daughter is safe and is understanding of the situation, your child who has Down syndrome?
Well, we've done several things. First of all, she needed to understand what was going on. Initially, she didn't quite understand why she couldn't go to school. So when schools were shut down, we told her she couldn't go to school. And I think she didn't quite understand. So she likes to get her stuff ready the day before school. So she sets out her clothes and gets her backpack ready the night before school. She even gets out her lunch bag and packs her lunch. So when we told her she couldn't go to school, I think she was a bit confused. And then when we told her that we had to go pick up her stuff from school, she thought she was going back to school. So she decided to pack her lunch bag. And I said, well, yeah, it's not that kind. We are just going to pick up your stuff. So after we came home and they started online schooling, I think she understood that she couldn't go back to school for a while. And so we explained to her, the school explained to her, and we tried to take her out on walks because she couldn't have any programming. We usually hire someone to help us on a private basis, but that person couldn't come into the house because of COVID, and her programming through an agency was cut short too. So we had to get creative in trying to do things just to get her engaged. And that was a bit of a challenge because my husband and I were both working from home. So trying to work from home and then make sure we engage her was a bit of a challenge.
Now, when everything was shut down during the pandemic, were any family support programs available to you and your family?
Yes and no. No, in the sense that she used to go to a program in town every Friday, and that was shut down. They tried Zoom, but it wasn't the same. She just wasn't as engaged as she would have been. And then she was involved in Special Olympics. That was shut down. She couldn't do that too. So everything was taken away, just like everybody else. But I guess with her, it was more challenging because she doesn't talk very much. So we had to constantly try to probe to find out what's going on. And she shut down completely because she likes routine. She knows when she wakes up, she goes to school, comes home, and she has that routine. So she shut down initially. Throughout the summer, she actually didn't want to communicate much. But once the programs opened up a little bit in July, things got a bit better.
What have you heard about other families and how they've been impacted, other families who have disabled children, how they've been impacted by this virus and all of the COVID-19 measures?
I think that the impact comes in, well, depending on the nature of the disability. So if your child has very complex needs, it's obviously more difficult because then you have to get workers in. And so the government was very flexible in allowing parents to try as much as possible to customize their programs because there are regulations in place regarding whom you can hire to work in your home. Family members couldn't help you, but they were very flexible enough in agreeing to allow parents, upon request, to be able to make those changes so family members could help if people couldn't come into the home to help them.
Now, you are also the chair of the Lethbridge Christian School Parent Council. What support is there for children with disabilities right now?
Okay, so right now, I think that depending on their needs, if the kids are inside the school, they are able to support them. But I'm not quite clear on what is happening with kids who are not at school right now. Yeah, I still have to get clarification on that. But with kids who are in the school, they do have support.
Now, Edna, do you see any potential problems down the road or even right now when it comes to schools and how they've reopened, even during the pandemic?
I think that it's a very difficult situation and a complex one because on one hand, I think schools are good for the mental health of our children because, I could see even firsthand that it really affected my girls because they couldn't socialize with their friends. So that affected them. But on the other hand, we know that when they are exposed to other students, there's a potential to have that outbreak. So from my perspective, I think it's a very, very difficult situation, but we cannot live in a society that doesn't have any risks. So provided they are able to manage it, I think I'm okay with it. Personally, I'm okay with them going. But of course, this wouldn't work for every family. There are some parents who would choose to homeschool their kids. And I'm so thankful that in our province, that option exists for parents. So whichever one you choose, they are able to support you.
Let's talk about your daughter who has Down syndrome again for just a moment here, Edna. What kind of independence does she have now that you can really enjoy in life?
Oh my goodness. She can do things by herself, like she can go to the bathroom by herself. She doesn't need anyone to help her to go to the bathroom. When she's coming back from school, we drive her in the morning. When she's coming back, she comes home on the yellow bus. She gets off at her stop most of the time, and then she walks home. She's able to eat on her own. She can navigate the iPad technology more than I can. And those are skills that, like, I am so thankful for that she has those skills.
I mean, like most kids, she probably has hopes for her future. Has she talked to mom and dad about what she'd like to do when she grows up?
She doesn't say very much, so you have to prompt her. So next year she's going to turn 18, which is a big transition year, adult year for her. So we had so many plans in the spring to put in effect just to get her preparing for that stage. But unfortunately, because of COVID, all those plans were cut short. So we have to wait. And then just as things open up and we're ready to get things into motion, she's in isolation. So it's been up and down. Yeah.
Yeah, it's been a roller coaster ride, definitely. Edna, what advice would you offer parents who are struggling with raising a child with a disability?
I think, first of all, you have to see them as any other human being. I think you have to have that perspective that they don't have a deficit. That is just who they are. They have challenges in life. So you have to just accept them as human beings and treat them as human beings. Secondly, you have to see what they have to offer. You know, they may not have certain cognitive skills, they may not have certain physical skills, but maybe a smile. Just look for the good in what they have, because I personally believe that everyone has something to offer and they have something. I mean, she has enriched my life so much. I don't know how my life would have been without her. I've gotten to know lots of people that have made such a big difference that I wouldn't have known but for her. So I would say that just look at the positive, and when you are having a bad day, ask for help. It is so important because the emotional and physical strains of raising a child who has so many challenges, it can be overwhelming, but it's important to know that there is help out there, so you can talk to your caseworker, talk to family members, get a support group around you. And a lot of the groups that, kids with special needs, they have different groups for different kinds of disabilities, if I should put it that way. So reach out to people and talk to people. It may look challenging, but you can overcome. And last of all, just take care of yourself. I think self-care is so important. Just get out, take a walk. It's not expensive. It doesn't cost money to get outside and enjoy the outdoors. So just get out there and enjoy the outdoors, clear your head and talk to people. Yeah.
Amen to that. Edna, let's also talk about your faith and your relationship with God and how important that is, especially as you navigate through a pandemic and raising a child with a disability.
Oh my goodness. I think that has been the thing that has gotten me through all the challenges, because it's not easy. And so my faith actually has strengthened me in the sense that when I face challenges, I know that, I may not know what lies ahead, but I can lean on God and know that, He's always there, even when it seems like the sky is falling. He's always there to just see me through whatever challenges that I'm going through. And also, I have a very strong faith family that have been very, very supportive, and that has always helped. And also, I think that having a child with challenges drives you to ask questions. And if you don't look at the right place for the answers to those questions, your faith can be shaken. And that was what happened to me, because initially I was looking for answers. And then I realized that it's not a bad thing. I mean, having a child with needs is not a curse. You didn't do anything wrong. That is just who they are. And so when you have that understanding, by getting into the word and knowing the word, it really, really helps. So I'll just encourage people that, don't look at the wrong places for answers to your questions. Just make sure that if you're a person of faith, get into your word, because you will never know what you will find every day that will strengthen you. That has always kept me going, because I try to get into the word as much as I can on a daily basis. Sometimes it's just one verse, and we have YouVersion app, right? So you can just look at the verse of the day and just think about it during the day. And that really, really helps.
Amen. Well said. Dr. Edna Jakota Assem, Chair of the Family Support for Children with Disabilities, thanks for joining us today.
You're welcome. My pleasure.
On behalf of all of us here at Bridge City News, I'm Hal Roberts. God bless, and thanks so much for watching.